Shalom Aleichem. Mishnah Yomi continues, finishing up Perek Zayin, the 7th chapter of Eiruvin today. So we're in chapter 7, Mishnah Yud. Bekol me'arvin v'shtatvin. With anything, with any food, you can make an eruv and a shituf. Chutz min hamayim u'min hamelech. But not water and not salt. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. That's the words of Rabbi Eliezer. This water and salt should sound familiar from Meiser Sheni. Remember, the Meiser Sheni funds or items were eaten in Yerushalayim. If you had money, you'd redeemed your Meiser Sheni items into money, then the money could be used to buy anything that was, grown from the ground, but not things like water and salt. That was Meiser Sheni. So this is Rabbi Eliezer. Now, we learned before that we make an Eruv Chatzerot on bread. So it sounds like Rabbi Eliezer is arguing. Some Mefarshim say he's not really arguing, but he's coming to argue only in Rabbi Yeshua that we're about to see. So Mishnah continues, Rabbi Yeshua Omer Kikar Hu Eruv. He says a loaf of bread is the Eruv. Now, he would agree that for Shidduch Mavo, you could use anything, but Dafka, a loaf for an Eruv Chatzerot, aval afilu meya seya v'hi prusa. Ein me'arvin ba. Even if you had a giant loaf of bread and you cut a slice of it, you can't make an eruv with a slice, even if it's from a giant bread from a seya of flour. Now, seya is 144 eggs. So this is a gigantic loaf of bread, and you cut a giant slice, but it's merely a slice, so he says you can't make an eruv with it, where Rabbi Eliezer would allow slices of bread, as long as, your amount of food is what we mentioned in Mishnah Ches yesterday. The two meals, if you have 18 or more people, or 18 or less, you need to do dried figs worth for each person. And the Mishnah continues, wrapping up Rabbi Yehushua's opinion, Kikar be'isar, if you had a loaf of bread, even if it's made from a small amount of flour, like an isar coin's worth, hu shalem, but it's a shalem me'arvin bo. So he doesn't allow a giant slice from a giant loaf because it's a slice. But he would allow a tiny loaf because it's a loaf. And we do have a chashivas, of course, on Shabbat to use lechem mishneh to try to have a full loaf, even a small loaf or a bagel or a matzah. If it's shalem, if it's whole and complete, the way it was baked, then that has a much greater preference to make the hamotzi on. As Rabbi Silver taught in the Smichat Chaver program this year about Hilchot Shabbat, is that according to some poskim, it's even better if you only have one shalem, one full loaf. It's better to pull one out of the freezer to make your hamotzi on two loaves, even though lamaisa, one of them is frozen right now. It could be refrosted later rather than use slices. But anyway, legabe eruv, we're talking about the eruv, not the hamotzi. Rabbi Eliezer would allow slices. Rabbi Yehoshua, no. Good. On to Mishnah 11. Noten adam ma. A man can give a coin lechenvani v'lenachtem to the shopkeeper or the baker. Now, this is someone who lives in his eruv or his mavui. Kadeshi is kilo eruv, to be part of the eruv. So he's buying in. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. This is according to Rabbi Eliezer. So you could, pay for a little of the materials, and then when the guy makes the loaf and everyone else comes and they buy the loaf and they put it in the chatzar, he's already part of the eruv or shituf. They say his money doesn't acquire for him. Now, this requires a little bit of explanation. We're going to get into this in detail in Bava Metzia when we talk about acquisitions made with purchase of money versus things like pulling or lifting. So on a deoraita level, on a biblical level, ma'ut kanot, your money makes an acquisition. However, this can cause problems because what if Reuven pays Shimon for a warehouse full of flax but doesn't go and collect his flax just now? So on a deoraita level, on a biblical level, he already owns all the flax, and Shimon might not be careful to have proper, sprinkler systems and fire prevention in that warehouse, and the flax will burn up and cause a loss. So rabbinically, they required an additional kinyan to fully own movable property, such as Mashicha, pulling it, or Hagbah, picking it up, and the like. We'll talk about this in Bava Metzia in detail, don't worry. So what the sages are saying is he paid money, which should work. And according to Eliezer, it certainly does work because we're lenient to allow back to the default of just money works to buy part of the loaf of bread. However, the sages are saying we don't go back to the default and rely on that, because what's going to happen is the shopkeeper or the baker, when he goes to be mizake to transfer over ownership of the food, of the loaf, to everybody else in the eruv of the mavui, he's not going to have this one guy who paid cash in mind, because he thinks, he's already koneh, and he's not necessarily koneh, just with his cash. The Mishnah continues, modim b'shar kol adam, but the sages agree regarding other people, not bakers and shopkeepers or selling bread. that the money there does work. Because those people don't normally sell food and loaves of bread, so they have in mind that the guy paid money to buy in his share of the Eruv. The Mishnah explains, She'ein me'arvin adam ela midaita. We don't make an Eruv for a person, include a person for the Eruv, only with his consent. So the implication here, because the Mefarshim, is if he gives money to another guy in the Chatzar or the Mavui and says, hey, I'm going to buy into the Eruv, then that regular guy is his shaliach. So he's showing that his das is to join the Eruv. And the other guy is acting as shaliach to get the Eruv stuff together and then buy the loaf with everyone's money. But if he gives it to the baker or the shopkeeper who already is selling the food, then he's not making a shaliach. He's trying to purchase right now part of the Eruv. And the sages say that does not work. Now the Mishnah concludes, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, the Meidamar Morim. When does this apply that you need to make a shliach and you can't buy in? Be'eruve techumin. That's an eruv techum. And where the reason is you need to have the dat, the agreement and consent of the giver. So by eruv techumin, remember, if you put your techum in a place, you get 2,000 amot to walk from that place where the food was put. So you can't go putting a eruv techumin down for somebody else without his full acquiescence, because you're limiting the area you can walk on Shabbat. This is chapter 5, review of chapter 5 here. But aval be'eruve chatzerot, where Yehuda says you're making it eruv on the chatzer, so then you wouldn't, the buy-in would be okay at the store level as well, because ma'arvin ladat sheladat, you can include someone in the eruv even without his formal assent and commitment to it. Because you can help somebody even not in front of him, even without his knowledge. We don't limit somebody unless he knows. So Rabbi Yehuda is saying that an eruv chatzerot, allowing someone to carry between his house and the courtyard, that's always a zechut. That's always beneficial. But an eruv techum, which enables him to walk in one direction but limits the other direction, is not. And the Gemara brings another understanding, Rabbi Yehuda, that he's not arguing on the sages. So when you learn up the entire Shas and the Gemara, you'll check that out. Have a great day.